So I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:02. Peter, we'll get you the list of names afterwards. But we definitely have a quorum. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 voting members out of 11. No.
The names are all in the participant list.
Okay, perfect. So we're missing only 4 people, which is really good. So first item of business is on changes to the agenda. Anybody have any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Public comment. Not sure who we have for public.
You only have board members.
Okay. No public comments. Going to be a really quick one tonight, folks. New business. Oh, something's happening.
No, I just asked Jen to share the agenda.
Okay, does everybody have the agenda? Because I want to go back to the other screen.
Yeah, she just is testing it out. She's going to drop it right now.
Okay.
See? Look how slick that was.
That was slick. Thank you, Jen. Superintendent's budget. So we're going to have discussion and possible action. So, Bill, I'm going to turn that over to you and wherever Lori is. I see Lori just under me. Hi, Lori.
Rich, do we want to introduce the board members?
Do we need to? Does everybody knows everybody, right? You can see everybody's name.
I think we're good, but just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, let's run with the budget because.
Okay. So, Rich, is it okay if I share the screen so that we can see it, or do you want to see the people?
Go ahead and does everybody have a budget, or do they need to see it on the screen?
I would like to see it on the screen, please.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would too. I didn't print it.
Okay, so I got 2 people want to see it on the screen. Is everybody else okay with that?
Fine with me.
Yes, let's see it on the screen. Ken McFadden.
Okay, go ahead, Bill. Put it on the screen.
All right. Miss McCusick is assisting me tonight, making sure that we are ready to share. Thank you, Jen. So as we always try every year, we try to learn from our presentation of the budget and try to evolve each time. And we meet with the officers before to look at a draft. They give us edits so that we can present something to you that is understandable, that is shareable, and that makes sense for everybody as you follow. So you can scroll down to page 2, Jen. Page 2 is just kind of an opening, gives you all the voting members, gives you kind of the table of contents of what is in our 19-page packet. And I'm going to walk you through, oh, go ahead, Jen, you go to the next page. So this is our organizational chart, just to give an idea of what we're going to be talking about tonight is running the operation at the Windham Central Supervisory Union. And this is a Lori Garland thought that it's important to kind of see all the players and how it all flows through. So thank you, Lori, for that suggestion and for the idea of creating the packet. All right, if we can go to the next page, Jen. All right, board, as you can see up on the top of the screen, we've got our actual FY20, our FY21 budget, and then our FY22 presented budget, which we're presenting tonight. Tonight's budget represents a 1.21% variance year over year. Below that, you'll see some of the drivers of our budget. The first one is staffing changes. And I just wanted to point out that there's many times in the past 3 years where I will come and we will talk about different staffing where we might be increasing the responsibilities of an employee, and therefore we are increasing the compensation of an employee. And this example in the first bullet point is an example of removing some responsibilities from an employee and therefore removing an appropriate level of compensation to match. So I just wanted the board to know that it is not a one-way street. It's not only going one direction. That's a common question that I get over the years. And so I just wanted to point out that this year, that's just a good example of, we do look at every position. We look at what they are delivering on the goals of the board, the requests of the boards, and the needs of following what is necessary to run the supervisory union. The next section is salary. So I broke that out into two separate groups. You've got your letter of employment employees, and then you have your contract employees. So people that have long-term contracts are in the contract employees, people that are just a letter of employment year to year. You see their total compensation and then what that represents in the budget. And then this year, I wanted to make sure that you saw all the payroll and retirement benefits that go along with those salary increases, because they're all connected. And so I thought it's important to share that. Under the third heading, healthcare, we are estimating 12% increase in healthcare, although I believe the email I received from Mark, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, VHI approved a 9 to 10% increase. But I was unsure until I get it directly from VHI and the different levels of plans, because silver might be 12% and gold CDHP might be 8%, and how that all plays out. So we left the 12% in for the budget just to be fiscally responsible. But even that, with the change of plans, different employees taking plans, that is a savings as well. And then I thought it was important to point out the other adjustments to the budget. As you know, during COVID, we have less travel. We have less people using professional development because there's less on-site things. And when they do professional development, it's usually through Zoom, and you don't have travel costs, you don't have lodging costs. So there is a savings there. And then the final bullet there is just another example of our Director of Finance being very thorough and always looking for additional revenue opportunities, and making sure that no stone goes unturned. The federal grant indirect ability to have $26,000 of revenue for the WCSU budget is a direct responsibility and finding of Lori Garland. So very much appreciate that. So that's kind of the highlights of the budget. And then Jen, if you can go to the next page, this is all the detail of the budget. And usually at this time, I just kind of point out what we just talked through, and then just seeing if anybody has any particular questions. Lori is usually the best one to answer these questions, as she has a much better handle on the specifics, but I will leave it up to you, Mr. Chair, about how you'd like to handle any questions at this point. And then we've got some more things to go through, but this is our proposed FY22 budget, which represents a 1.21% year-over-year increase. We'll get to assessments for individual districts later in the presentation.
And Bill, what was this budget based on? How did you put this budget together?
So we put this budget based on what are our fiscal responsibilities, what are our legal responsibilities, what do boards ask us for level of service. We look at what we have done the past year. Are there any ways that we can be more efficient? Are there any, as I pointed out before, are there any jobs that need to be increased, decreased, reorganized, refashioned? And basically keeping the same level of service that is being required by the boards, but doing it in the most fiscally responsible way we can, so that we can serve our 5-member districts to the betterment of our students.
And just real quick before we open it up, usually we all have a mission statement, and I'm sure all the schools have worked hard and the districts have worked hard on what their basis for why they're there, why we exist. You have your mission statement, you have your goals and objectives and stuff. Is that taken into account when you do this budget also?
It is, absolutely. So I was just looking at our mission statement today in preparation for this, but the core of our mission statement is to be student-centered. It is to be collaborative. and it is to deliver a reasonable budget so that it's supportive of the communities in which we are involved. And I believe that that's what this budget does. It is student-centered. It is providing the services to the students. It is maintaining our assets through making sure that we are overseeing everything that is owned by the individual districts. And it is delivering upon a reasonable fiscal investment for our individual towns.
So I can't see everybody on the screen, and I don't know if everybody can see the entire budget. So if you have a question, maybe unmute yourself, and I think you come to the top of the pile.
Ken McFadden, I really don't have a question. I have a congratulatory thank you, Bill. Thank you, Lori. It seems like a very fiscally responsible to the taxpayer budget. We are under the COLA, which we all know, Bill, how I like that.
Yes.
So I have no problems with this budget, and good job, all of you who worked on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I will tell you, it's a team effort. You know, Lori starts working on this budget a year and a half ago. She's already thinking about what FY23 budget's going to look like, and that all plays into it. So, Ken, we very much appreciate that very much.
Is there anybody else with any questions or comments?
Yeah, Rich, Mark Schauber.
Go ahead, Mark.
Excuse me. So I've got a few hopefully easy questions. The decision to go from HSAs to HRAs, is that a VHI decision or a supervisory union decision?
That is a decision based on the arbitrator's decision between the board's negotiation and the Teachers Association, which was rendered in December of last year.
Okay. Down in the fiscal services section, towards the bottom of it, you've got telephone and voice, general supplies. I see that for the past 2 years, those are higher than what are being budgeted for.
Line 50, function 5534.
Yes. Yep.
I'll let Lori speak to that.
Sure. So there's some offsetting revenues on the telephone and voice. So we usually just keep that budget flat, and then we, await to see basically what the offsetting revenues will be on that as well. There are some things in there that we know in 1 year we may spend more on one type of expense, and then another year spend on the other type of expense. So try to keep those as flat as possible unless we see a decrease because of a certain reason. So for instance, travel, and we're probably going to see it in 21 as well, that travel is way down because of what Bill was talking about, because we're doing this, right? So we're all on Zoom. So there's a lot less travel in that. So that's it's the reasoning behind it, that we know that there's going to be offsets in other areas.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all set, Mark?
I'm good.
They were easy questions. Anybody else want to play Stump the Lori or Stump the Bill?
I guess I have something that's more probably annoy Lori and annoy Bill. It's more an explanation, but I see, I'm looking for an explanation, I guess. I see the year-to-date column is 856 and the actual budget that we passed was 924. That's an 8% difference there. And it's clear that you're building your budget based on the budget we passed last year. But what's that year-to-date 8%? Is that travel, food, all that stuff? Or where's that coming from? Where's that different?
Right. So you're talking about the fiscal year 21 year-to-date actual column?
Correct. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's total and where we're anticipated to be at the end of the year, right?
It is for whatever's been encumbered. So there's probably a lot of things as I'm looking down through the line that have not been encumbered yet. We don't encumber supplies until just before they're ordered and come in. So this is a point in time, just a snapshot of where we were when I pulled this out of the software, which was probably 4 weeks ago now. So that number probably has changed.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, no problem.
Doug, you failed. You didn't stump Lori.
Yeah, sorry.
Who's up next?
We got
can I-
more to go, so don't feel like you have to ask everything now. Trust me, we got more slides to go.
Okay, so one of the things that I've always joked about is, the expenses are just one side of the equation. There's some years when your expenses could go up like 30%, and then you find out your tax rate only goes down, and there's times when your budget goes down 20%, but your tax rate goes up, and it's really confusing. And big changes with Act 60 and 68 and whatever comes in the future. So on the expense side, like Bill said, they base this on student needs, and to what was actually needed to run an efficient central office or supervisory union. So that was part one of where we're headed today. So the second part of what we have to do now is we have to look at our next item, which is, and I lost my agenda here, it's the education special ed budget. And I know we have a different person who's probably going to talk about this, but Bill, you want to start that?
Well, I was wondering if we could just finish off the assessment part of the superintendent's budget and then go to the special education budget, if that's okay.
Sure. I think that's good. I thought we had it down later, but I don't see it. So.
No worries. So in between this budget, Lori has a couple slides that I'd really like her just to explain briefly. I think it's important for the board to understand the fund balance and how that has evolved over the past 4 years. So Lori, if you could just give us a brief update on that, that would be great.
Sure. So the slide in front of you is a picture of basically the health of Windham Central, its financials, and what has happened since fiscal year 2017. So as you can see, that our fund balances have been increasing. Little side note here, that these are not all the funds that Windham Central is in Windham Central's accounting system. A lot of them that I didn't put on here are the federal funds, federal grants. So you have very little control over those. The funds that I put in here are really funds that you have, that you can move around, that you can use, that you don't have total, or you have more control over. So I'd like to go through them and talk about them because it's changed a little bit over the last year with the new accounting system. We were able to break out the general fund, which is also known as the supers fund, and the special ed fund and the agency fund. Those are the three of those together are the operating budget that we use day in and day out. So before, everything was under the general fund. Now by splitting these out, it actually really makes it a lot more transparent in my view. The general fund, you can see just from 19 to 20 increased about $62,000 in fund balance. The special ed, there was a surplus this year of $97,000. And the board, I think a couple months ago, decided to keep that in reserves for unanticipated costs in the future. And then the agency fund, which is soon to be known as the Fee for Service Fund, or FFS fund, also had a surplus in it. And that is primarily from PD that was not used, and also transportation costs that came in less than expected, mainly due to COVID. Both of those things were due to COVID. The 21C local and Medicaid IEP, these work in concert with each other, and they are part of the 21C sustainability plan that we have. So right now, the two together, about 103,000, and that puts the districts in, very good standing if the 21C federal grant is reduced over the next few years. We're able to keep the same level of service for the after-school programs in all of the districts. And then the Medicaid EPSDT goes to support nursing, different things within the nursing programs. It goes towards some food services. Marlboro gets a piece of this as well. And then we have just miscellaneous grants that are sort of an in and out, that come in and out throughout the year. So I just want to point out that over the 4-year span that the increase has been significant. And I want to talk a little bit about this because I think we'll probably enter into some conversation later about it. But typically we're looking for 5 to 10% reserve, basically, to have in these different funds. So if the board were to think of it in terms of, let's talk about like a 7%, somewhere in the middle there, then the superintendent's budget would be around $66,000, and the special ed would need $440, and the agency fund would need $161. So that's about $667,000. Right now, if you combine all those, it's about 804, right? So I'm looking at them as a whole, instead of in their silos at this point. So you can see that you're over 7% of fund balance and reserves. So it, puts Windham Central in a very healthy standpoint. Does anybody have any questions about fund balances? And
yeah, Lori, this is Dan.
Sure.
I have a question about that agency fund. Now that is going to soon become fee for service. It seems like if we have excess in that, in other words, let's see, what am I trying to say? Don't you bill for those services as they get provided? Do we need to keep a balance in that fund? It would seem like we could zero that one out and just bill for services as they're provided.
So you're right. At the end of the year, typically a reconciliation is done and money is either the board decides at that point, because it's in a separate fund. They decide, just like special ed, whether to keep it in a reserve or for unanticipated expenses, or to, either sometimes it'll end in a deficit and we need to recoup that money as well, right? So it goes both ways. And so I'm not sure that the board made any decisions about this at the last meeting, but typically you are right. We do a reconciliation and the money comes in and out, and there's far less of a surplus or a deficit than this. This is unusual because of COVID.
The other thing is too, that was a good question, Dan, but if we could, because we're discussing the superintendent's budget now too, and a lot of it will be going into this, the special ed budget. I think, Lori, if we could, focus on how it affects the superintendent's budget, because then, I think the decision needs to be made more so for each individual fund, right? Because we can't have a blanket policy, because a lot of the special ed stuff is encumbered, right? You can only spend it on certain things, but like the superintendent's fund balance can go anywhere we want it to go. We could put some towards special ed. Did I miss that, or is that?
No, you're absolutely right. Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So does anybody have any questions about the superintendent's fund balance? The general fund balance. Okay, I don't see anybody rising to the top. So I think on the superintendent's budget, please let me know if I got this wrong, but everybody's okay with the expenditures. And then we will have to have a conversation when we go to figure out, when Lori's going to figure out how much it's going to cost us all, about how much fund balance we want to use, if any. Is that, Bill and Lori, is that right?
Yeah, we're going to take you to that after the next slide. So that's a perfect segue, Rich.
Lori, is that good?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. So then if there's nothing else, I don't see anybody else coming up to the top. So why don't we go ahead, Lori and Bill, go ahead and tell us what this budget's going to cost us.
All right. So just a inclusion in your thing. We don't need to go over it, but we want to make sure that you guys understand, the last 5 years of the superintendent's budget. You can see the comparison of the costs, the ADM, and the FTEs that pays for. So I won't go over it. You guys can see all the detail, but we just wanted to make sure that you guys had that level of detail. Sometimes you get questions as board members, and we wanted to make sure that you guys understood, kind of the 5-year snapshot of the superintendent's budget, ADM, and, staffing. So I'm not going to go over it. Just want to show you that, but I'm going to ask Jen to go to the next slide, and we'll get to, as Rich said, how much it's all going to cost you. So I will pass it off to Lori again. I feel like I'm on a radio show. It's kind of fun.
I want one of those things that you have. Okay, so this is year over year, what the different assessment is. And you can see that in some cases, your assessment goes up and some it goes down. For the majority, it goes down. And that is all based on ADM. So River Valley's had a boon in ADN this year. So that is why their assessment is going up, and everybody else is going down for the same reason that their ADM went down. So this is where the $26,000 of additional revenue comes into play and why we are seeing a reduction. So the 26,000 is revenue that we don't have to collect from the school districts, right? We're collecting it from the federal grants, which is the first time in the history, actually, of Windham Central that the indirect rate has been applied for and received. So that's, good for us. We basically take a very small portion, about 2 to 3% of all the federal grants, and it's a federal law that says that we can take it for operational expenses, to offset operational expenses. So this is why the total is 903 versus the 935. That's where those offsetting revenues that you're used to hearing, that's where they're coming in to play.
So I guess this is a good time, for questions. Yeah.
Rich, this is Dan. I got
Dan,
one.
yep.
So this looks like it's based on ADM, just taking a snapshot at this point. Does this ever get changed? I mean, what happens if we get into next year, a year from now, and these ADM numbers have shifted around completely? Do these assessments hold through the budget that we approved tonight?
We have not done that in the past. We do the snapshot when the budget is approved at the ADM at that moment. And then if it goes up or if it goes down, this is the assessment.
Flies. Mm-hmm.
Remember too, I joke about it, but at town meeting, I always tell the voters when they ask, is this enough money? Is it too much? And I always say, if I could predict a year and a half out what things are going to be, you don't think I'd be here. I'd be on some tropical island drinking cocktails. So yeah, they do adjust, but once it's set, then it doesn't matter about changes after that.
Rich?
Yep, go ahead, Mark.
So I think Dan sort of answered my question, but these ADM numbers are the October 1st, the official October 1st numbers.
It's actually October 19th is the day, but yes, exactly, Mark. These are the ADM counts that we submit to the state.
Great, thank you.
Now, sorry.
Go ahead, Doug.
I'm still confused on ADM. I'm sorry. I know I called you earlier, Bill, but
no, it's good.
We're basically, there's a hold harmless that's going to be in place for our own budgets, all across the state. Technically, I'm just calling it that, off the cuff, but we're going to use our budget numbers for our ADM from last year for this year's budget as Marlboro because of, kids going homeschool and remote. And so does your submission change any of that, or no? That would not change a legislative motion.
So there's two things. One is we have to submit the reel so that they have the reel. And then the legislators' words were that it can't drop below what last year's ADM is. So that's why we submit the reel, and they take the higher of the two. So if you look at the chart right there, you see Marlboro is 99 for FY21. That's what was submitted. And your FY22 reel is 93. You're going to be building a budget based on 99 because you're held harmless. But you look at River Valley's down below, they were 137 last year. They are going to get 164 counted. So you take the higher of those two numbers in the column FY21 or FY22. That is what the legislation provides for.
Thanks, Bill.
You bet.
And the other thing, we can decide, we can use whatever numbers we want to use. I mean, we as a group could tell Lori to base it on last year's numbers. But then, that isn't fair because we're going to be taking more services. So, we could also say, let's use a December 1st number, but, we got to give Lori and Bill a number to base a budget on, to build a budget. And it usually doesn't change that much during the school, during the school year, where we could make those changes. So that, I think this is a really good basis. And this is what we base all our previous budgets on, is a number around this time so we can move forward. Russ, do you have a question or comment, sir?
Yes, this is Russ Cumming. I'm up in Windham, and I'm looking at that number 14, and that's our equalized pupils level from last year and this year's. Our actual attendance is actually 8 students. So is this 14 that you're using, Lori, just a number that is close to 13.5, which is our actual equalized pupils for this next year?
So no, these are ADM numbers. So these are the bodies in the seats, but they also include pre-K that may not be in your building. So all of these numbers include pre-K through 6, actually.
Well, we don't have that many kids in pre-K to make it up to 14. We actually have 8 warm bottoms in the seats. And that would mean that we'd have 12 in pre-K in order to get the 6th up to 14. We don't have that many. I think we only have 4.
So the numbers that do they include some homeschooled students that are accessing, maybe? Maybe Bill can answer this.
Well, there are a few that are accessing, but at an hour a week, that's only 0.32 for each hour per week. So they total of 14. Just questioning.
Yeah. So the ADM is pre-K through 6.
6, right.
And it would include all your pre-K students that you are either paying for, or they could be what are called ECSE students, early childhood special education students, that may not even be enrolled in a program, but they receive those services. So we are allowed to count them for ADM, which is actually a benefit for everybody, because when you count them for ADM, then it gets to focus into your equalized pupils count.
Okay. I was unaware that we had that many pre-K kids, but if that's the way it is, it is. Thank you.
I mean, these are absolutely good questions, and we will make sure that we will double check that number. I don't think your assessment would change dramatically if it was 12.5 ADM or 14 ADM, but absolutely good question and good point to ask.
I just had spoken with Sarah Wonderly the other day, and I totaled up the numbers, and anyway, but we'll check again.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Russ. And just for everybody, Russ is a new board member on Windham, and very curious, inquisitive, and knowledgeable in the financial world. Has been very helpful in asking really good questions. Thank you, Russ.
Is there any other questions on the assessment portion?
I've got a question, but now may not be the appropriate time to ask. And it has to do with, this is Keegan, West River Board member. So my question is related to the number of new families, or like I know from reading a few real estate reports about the town of Jamaica, for instance. In March, there had been about 60 homes on the market. In the end of September, it was reported that 20 homes had sold, 11 were in like agreement, with a few homes still left on the market. So I'm wondering, will these numbers change if we discover, or when we discover, that a lot of these new home owners within our town have children that are going to be enrolled in school? Do you know when parents need to notify school districts of when their children will be joining us?
So,
Go ahead, Rich, take it.
so again, like Lori was saying earlier, she has to base the count on a number at a period of time so that we're all the same. In Dover, there's probably 150 houses that are going to be sold. In Stratton, there's probably 500 houses. So what happens is they just pick a number, they pick a date, we have a number. The number is the same for all the different districts. So if these 60 new homes that are sold in Jamaica, or whatever number it is that you were saying, is next year when they enroll, so then next October when they do the count, then yes, they will show up on that count. We can't, Lori can't base the numbers on people saying, oh, I'm buying a house, or I'm going to move in, or if the house closes. So it's that so Lori said she uses the October, and I always get the date wrong. It's the 15th or whatever. That's the number she's using right now. So everybody's number is the same, comes from the same source. Those students that are actually enrolled in the school, the kids in the seat, as she said, students in the seat, and that gives us a number. And then again, as the year goes by, that number changes. I always joke in Dover again too, if you look at our weighted ADM, it's always a number like 198.45. And I said, if we only had 4/5 of or 0.45% of a student, they'd be really hard to educate depending which half you get, I guess. So it's just basically a number. And as I think it was Russ earlier asked the question too, if you really look at this, a few here or there don't make a huge difference in the numbers, because it's not just, it's not in a vacuum. Your number, West River's number, isn't a vacuum number. It also has to do with all the other districts too. Where we would see a huge change is if, like in the West River district, we went from 500 to 1,000 students, that would make some big difference for everybody, not just you guys. That would drop all the other places down. Does that answer your question?
It does. I was just kind of curious, like what role are we thinking about with the kids that maybe were unsuccessful with remote learning, if home study would become an option, if those attendance numbers would still count? So if a child that withdraws completely to be a homeschool student as opposed to a homeschool supported, that's what I was.
Yeah, and they also count too, because they're being taken care of at the school. Remember last spring, all students were homeschooled too. So, but those are really good points.
I was referring to the actual unenrollment of school and the joining of the AOE homeschool study program. But that's,
I believe we still get to count, don't we, Bill?
No, you don't get to count them, which is the point of having the hold harmless that Doug was referring to earlier. It gives you that year so that if those kids come back, say they come back next year in September, then you get to count them on next year's October roll. So, are there any more questions? I just wanted to talk about some long-term planning about this. So this is the assessment as it looks right now. This is what we have done every year. We have an expense budget. We assess out based on ADM.
Hey, Bill.
Go ahead.
Bill, I'm sorry. Just like a clarifier. Instead of saying homeschool students, there's a difference between a homeschool student and a remote learning student.
That is correct.
So that's what we need to be careful of. If somebody's just doing full remote, doesn't mean they're being homeschooled. We have to keep that in mind.
That's a great point, Ken. Thank you.
All right.
So because we showed you earlier where the fund balance was, and we wanted to at least toss a pebble in the lake to see if the board wanted to consider some long-term planning where you might want to use some of your fund balance over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years on a regular basis in order to reduce the assessment to all of the districts, similar to a school district using some of their fund balance to reduce the tax rate for their taxpayers. So that concept, I grew up with that concept in Dover for the 7 years that I worked there, and it was very appreciated by the taxpayers. And so when Lori and I were talking this year, we thought that we at least bring that idea to the board to see if that was a concept that might make sense. And so we just put that under long-term planning, and it's pretty simple, you know, committing $20,000 a year for 5 years simply to reduce the tax, to reduce the assessment for the district, which therefore reduces the need to raise that amount of taxes in each individual district.
Bill, so just a quick question on that, and Lori, you know, if they're going to artificially hold some numbers higher for us this year too, and it looks like, you know, assessment wise, we're darn close to what we were last year. You know, would it make sense to maybe hold a little bit more of that, because, you know, that's maybe like a little cliff that you fall off of, because if the legislature decides that for next year, you know, we pretend like this past year didn't happen. So I think there's a couple different ways to look at that, but we have two things we have to decide, folks, too. The first thing we need to decide is if we want to approve the budget itself. And then the second thing would be, after we approve the budget, then we have to approve if we want to move money out of, you know, out of the reserve to offset the expenses. So are we all done? Is there any other charts or anything we need to look at?
The other charts will be just about the second portion of what you just talked about, Rich, would be, this is what it would look like if you applied those balances.
So can I just ask a quick question before we move on? Does anybody have a problem with the proposed superintendent's budget?
Rich, this is Dan. I'm going to make a motion that we approve it as presented, just so we can carry on this discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the superintendent as presented. Who seconds it?
Ken
McFadden seconds it. Peter, I don't see you anymore, but are you good? Did you get that motion, and who made it? Who seconded it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that leads to discussion. Dan, you have any discussion?
No, I think, like Ken said before, my discussion would be congratulatory. And I know this is jumping the gun a little bit, but I see down at the very bottom of what Bill put together, he had asked an independent organization to look at WCSU, its expenditures, its staffing levels, things like that. And I think that those people came to the same conclusion, that this is a well put together budget and a lean, mean machine here.
Ken, you got a comment, sir, as a seconder?
Nope, I'll just second what Dan said.
Okay, so we got 2 seconds. Does anybody else have any discussion? I don't see anybody rising to the top, so all those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
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 Is anybody opposed to the motion? Are there any abstentions? I would say, Bill and Lori, good job. You have a superintendent's budget for next year. So now Lori and Bill are going to lead us a little bit further down the path about, do we want to move some money from the reserves to help offset what's going to get billed to the districts. So go ahead, whoever, Lori or Bill.
Hey, Jen, could you call that back up again? And good prescient movement of getting the people so that we could have that for the vote. That was very kind of you. Well, as Jen pulls this back up, actually, Rich, that's a really interesting point that maybe this isn't the year to make that type of investment, but it would be a good discussion to just for the concept so that we could possibly bring it back next year, because next year we might not get this hold harmless from the legislature, and it would be nice to keep that money so that you guys had it as a board to make that decision next year. So I'll just open with that, but go ahead, Lori. You can go explain this one.
Can I just say something about that too, Bill? You know, we've been doing this in Dover since Act 60. So for over 20 some odd years, we've always gone to the voters and said, here's what our reserves are. Here's what your budget is. This is how much we recommend that you move over, but we always let the voters vote on it. So I think the discussion is good. And I think the reserves, because I know before Lori was here, you know, we always try to get to a certain reserve number and we were never able to do it. And under Lori, you know, she's gotten us a really good reserve, and it's always nice to have a little bit of a nest egg for something unexpected. But I think it's nothing that we can set ahead of time. I think Lori and Bill, we would have to vote on this annually, but it's good to kind of set precedent. So I think it's a really good conversation to have. But I don't, just remember, the conversation will only be about, we can only vote to do it this year. We could say, you know, we're going to take 20,000 out for the next 5 years, and next year's board can change that vote.
Good point.
Good point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan, and then Lori.
So, Rich, I actually want to take a slightly different tack. You're suggesting that we don't, that we discuss it, but that we not take the 20,000 and move it from fund balance. I was going to ask Lori, what since I can't remember the numbers that you ran through before, if we have a total expenditure of 617 and use 20,000 of fund balance, is that about the 7%, or what would 7% be? You mentioned these numbers before, I just don't remember them.
Sure. There's if we keep things at around 7%, it actually gives you around 137,000 to work with between the three funds, not just the superintendent's. And Rich has pointed out before, just talking about the superintendent, the superintendent, because in the past few years, 4 years, it has not been separated out between the funds. All of the fund balances have lived in that. So it's inflated, like some of that fund balance could have been from not typically special ed, because we're typically overspending in special ed, but it could have been some other fund balances. Back to what Rich was saying about, you know, the hold harmless. So when Bill and I had this discussion and I was looking at fund balances and knowing that I believe we are at an appropriate level and could afford to do this. That was the discussion was before the legislature came out with the hold harmless. So we still, you know, wanted to have this discussion with all of you, but I do like your point, Rich, and I think it's very valid that next year we are going to see, in most cases, with the exception probably of River Valley's, a pretty significant drop in equalized pupils. Now, remember, the ADM is what drives the equalized pupil number. And so you are correct that this year may not be the year to do it, because next year we may want to do more than 20,000. So,
and Lori, and Dan, I'm not recommending that we don't do it. I just wanted to bring that up to let you guys discuss it. I'm not recommending one way or the other. I was hoping that, like Bill said, we usually review the budget with the officers, and just because of this year so weird, we didn't get to sit there with Lori and discuss it. It was just Bill, and only 2 of the officers could make it. And then this just struck me after the fact, and I don't like to spring things on people. But so it was just to bring it up so we could get everybody to weigh in and see what they thought. I'm good any way you want to go, any way that the board wants to go, obviously.
Rich, I would completely agree with you. I would recommend that we don't take any action on this. We have the hold harmless available to us right now. We have no idea what could happen next year. There are a lot of things in play. Yes, there may be the potential with the waiting study, so that could potentially be a benefit, but we don't know right now. I'd much rather have the ability to safely have the 137K to work with next year, and potentially even more. Lori is fiscally responsible as she always is, to play with next year. I think that would be the most prudent thing to do right now.
Rich, it's Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
One, can we go back to the gallery view? It's hard having these conversations when you can't see everybody. I would tend to agree that holding off on this is probably a better thing to do. Who knows what the legislature is going to decide over the next really 2 budget seasons. And having a little extra nest egg could really be beneficial down the road for us.
Again, too, Bill and Lori, I value, we really highly value your opinions too. So I do apologize for springing it, but are you guys in agreement, or would you rather see us try to use it this year?
I'll let Lori go last because she has the most important voice, but I would agree that we're in good shape this year, and I'd rather save it for what could be a very painful FY23.
And I concur. I wanted to put it out for the board to understand where they stood financially, the health of WCSU, and also to understand that there are funds available. But knowing that we have hold harmless this year, I would also say that we should push off a year.
So I don't believe we need to vote on it. I think we would have to vote if somebody wanted to move the money. But if we don't want to move the money, and if everybody seems to be in agreement with that, then I think we can move on. And I do want to kind of echo what everybody said earlier, Lori and Bill, very responsible budget. Thank you for building us a nest egg, and thank you for allowing us to being able to have this discussion, because there's a lot of districts that can't have this discussion. So you guys definitely pat yourselves on the back. I would pat you if I could, but I'll pretend I'm doing it. So I think we're good. Let's move us. If you guys are all good, Al's clapping. That's cool. Special ed budget.
You ready? Yeah.
Go, Steph.
All right. So I'm Stephanie Beatty-Hancock, Director of Special Education. I think everyone knows me, but just want to make sure. So I'm in my 4th year in this role, and have to say it's been a pleasure working in the supervisory union. It's been a pleasure to see the community support, the school board support, the embracing of change, the review of decisions and data-based decisions. I feel really good about where we're at, including with special education. So it's exciting. So this budget that we will be presenting tonight is for early childhood special education through age 22. So this narrative covers that. And then in later pages, you'll see the budgets are split out just because of the way districts are billed for that. So my narrative here, my budget points, has this overview of thinking in forward-thinking terms, fiscal responsibility, and then being prepared to respond to changes or challenges that come up due to this disruptive year we've had due to COVID-19. So I wanted to make sure that we maintained efforts we had started, and move forward, even though things are challenging because of COVID, to keep moving forward and not lose that momentum that we've had. So if you look on here, you'll see that we've had an overall reduction in our number of students, or projected number of students in special ed for next year. There are a couple of reasons for that. So part is because some students have gone to home study or, homeschool. Some have moved out of the SU, and some have come off of IEPs due to the incredible multi-tiered system of support that we have within our supervisory union with core instruction, improvements there, with our local comprehensive assessment system, catching kids quicker, thanks Al, and our academic support team providing really great intervention very quickly to kids so they don't have to fail before they get support, and then special education providing very intensive intervention for the kids who struggle the most. This year, in working on our time studies that we have to do for every special ed employee twice a year, we have seen that we have some increased flexibility that we weren't aware of as before. So now I feel we'll even better blend AST, so academic support team, and special ed to be able to even better meet students' needs. So that's exciting. So if we look, let's see, Jen, can you? Let's see. Well, not yet. Okay, sorry. So throughout this, you'll see some vision work that I want to do. You'll see some tough decisions based on student reduction and some really great forward thinking. So in response to the decreased number of students, we have made some tough decisions. One is we are reducing 1.67 special education teacher positions. We are reducing 1 full-time paraeducator and reducing 1 early childhood special ed interventionist. And again, those were hard decisions, but we feel very strongly that special education needs to be looking at the number of students and being responsive to that. So as we look down a little bit further, you'll see that we are going to continue with the behavior specialist position, the reading specialist position. We're going to continue with the case management role separated out from the instructional role. And you'll see through the budget as we go forward that we have level staffing for our related service providers. Jen, are you able to go to the next page? I'll go back to the green. Don't worry, Bill. There we go. Okay, so Lori did an amazing thing for all of us to create this visual to show where special ed money is being spent. And you'll see in the leftmost column is salaries. That's what you want to see, is that you're spending money on people who can make a difference in your supervisory union. When you go to the third highest area, that's outside tuition. So that is the cost for students who are being sent out of district. So you can look at the amount of money. There's $1.4 million for about 20 kids. And if you look at the fourth most highest cost is transportation. And that goes hand in hand with the out of district placements. So what I'm aiming to do this year is shifting some of those reductions to different roles. So I'll kind of outline this vision. So I want to shift one of those reduced special education teachers to become a special education coordinator for assisting me with the administration of special education. This will allow me to have create a layered system that will better push us forward to be able to do regional collaboration, will help us build our in-district program and really boost things up so that we can have a more robust continuum of services for students. They'll also help me further implement the district management group. They'll help me with staff management and training, and just enable us to do this long-term vision work that we've been trying to do throughout the years. We will shift one of the special education teachers to run an in-district elementary aged program for students who have social, emotional, and behavioral needs. We have brainstorm ideas of where the site will be, but we definitely feel that if we take one of those staff members and move them to that role, that we will be able to keep more students in district and bring some back. As appropriate, I should always say. This also allows us, these structural changes allows us to maintain our robust systems within each school, so less kids are needing to go out. So we have behavior support paras, we have thinking feeling rooms, we have spaces for kids to go to get needs proactively and reactively. And sorry, I just got to look at my notes, guys. It's been a long day. Okay. And the other thing in doing this, so along with these difficult decisions and really, I know, a lot of reflection, I was very committed to continue the desires that I wanted for each school. So that is to be able to have 5 days a week of that specialized instruction available for students, be able to maintain those supports we already have in schools, and then blend even deeper with the academic support team and special ed staff so that we are, I don't know, better at meeting students' needs. So the impact financially of all these changes, and Jen, if you don't mind going back to the page before this one, the impact is that the cost of special education for early childhood special ed through age 22 is $6,268,597, which is a reduction of 2.28% from last year. So this is including the increases in insurance costs. It's an increase in salary. We projected what we think it will be. Of course, there's still negotiations going on, but we did our best to project for that. So celebration-wise, this is the first time in a decade that special education costs have gone down. So it's exciting that the work we've done to implement district management group recommendations, best practice, the academic support team, local comprehensive assessment system, and all those other acronyms, all of that has caused us to be able to already reduce our costs, which is pretty amazing. I do feel like I have to have one of those like really fast-paced disclaimer things, which is that this is all projected a year in advance. A ton of things could change, but this is our best guess. And the number of students, so 200 students that I'm projecting, includes bringing back the students who are doing the home study. So I feel that a lot of them will come back when everything is, resolved, or there's a vaccination or things like that. So as always, just want to thank everybody and say for sure that none of this would be possible without the teamwork of general education getting the PD and the core instruction that needs to happen, an academic support team catching students early, and then special ed being responsive to that. So I just want to make sure that's out there. So are there any questions on the narrative side of things?
I don't have a question, but can I share a comment?
Sure.
The work you've done with your multi-tier systems of support is truly incredible. Really, really nice job.
Thank you. It is such teamwork and collaboration. It's a lot of leadership work, a lot of PD work, a lot of collaboration with teachers. It's definitely not just me. I'm just one piece of the gears. So,
bravo, team. Really well done.
Thanks.
So Stephanie, are you going to show us the numbers then?
Yeah, you're almost like the show me the money guy, right?
Show us the numbers.
So I'm going to turn that part over to Lori Garland because she's our genius over there. Is there anything that you need me to speak to, Lori, or do you feel like walking through?
No, I think I'm ready to talk about what does it cost each district now. And, Stephanie, working with Jen, it's been incredible to watch. And I've been doing, before I was the business manager, I worked with Abby Dillon for many, many years doing special ed finance under Frank Recker. And this is really incredible to see a decrease. So just a little historical value there. Jen, if you would just scroll up to the next screen for me, or I'm sorry, down. Okay, so this is our assessment model for special education. Now this breaks it up between K through age 22 and ECSE. So we're going to talk about the K through 22 first. As most of you remember, the cost methodology I wrote it out there, but we had a subcommittee in preparation for Act 173 that has now been pushed off a couple of years. But it really was a good move for everybody. And I'll just explain basically how we get to the local cost from the LEA. So I'll just quickly explain it. So we take the gross cost for a certain segment, which is the K through 22 expenses, and we calculate out what our reimbursement will be, because we are still under a reimbursement model at this point in time. And then we also receive a block grant from the AOE. We get additional revenue for state place students and extraordinary cost students. So that is the $380,000 there. And then we also use our federal grants in funding special education as well. So when you remove all of those revenues, the reimbursement, block grant, and the SPS and extra, and the grant, that is what is due from the school districts. So we basically, take that and we say, okay, what is the variance? So the variance over year, which is how we did the methodology, is negative 67,000. So basically, in terms of K through age 22, everybody is seeing somewhat of a decrease this year, and that is run through simply ADM. I just want to point out here, because we had a discussion about ADM prior, is this ADM is pre-K through, this ADM is K through 12, right? And it is different from the superintendents. It's always been this way. The superintendents has always been an elementary based assessment, and then this is the total ADM. So you can see each in the yellow, the fall service plan, those numbers there will be in your budgets, and they show a decrease in all of the different school districts. And then if we want to just go up to the next one, we'll look at the ECSE, or down. Is Jen there? Jen? There you go. Thank you. Okay, so the cost methodology for the ECSE is basically there's a base cost, which includes all of the teachers and the related services. And those base costs are divided by ADM. And then if there is a one-to-one para-educator needed, then that cost is billed back to the school district. So again, you take your gross expenses, block grants, there's some direct bill that is going out to a couple of different districts here, revenues from the grants, and you have basically what is the LEA owe to make the budget whole. And then that again is run through ADM. So this, for most, it is a reduction. Windham does have an increase here because of services needed.
So Lori, when we vote budgets, we vote these two separately though, I believe, every year, right? This early childhood is not part of the special ed. We'll vote the special ed number and then we'll vote this number, correct? Or do you vote them together?
I would vote them together. They really are we're moving towards Act 173, and 173 is, we're looking at total special ed costs, and so I would vote them together.
So is there any questions? The last two slides kind of show what it's going to cost you, but what we're going to need is we're going to need a motion to approve the expenditure.
Right.
So does anybody have any questions on the expenditures? And obviously the higher the expenditure, the more your share is going to be, or the more the district share will be.
Rich, it's Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
Similar question that I asked before. These ADMs, they're the current ones?
Mm-hmm. The October 19th, right? Number.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see anybody else. Is there anybody else who has any comment or question? Are you folks ready to approve a budget, or do you guys want to sit on this one and think about it and have another meeting?
Let's vote.
So would you like to make a motion, Al?
I will make that motion to approve the special education budget.
I will second Al's motion.
Okay, so just again, because I sometimes are a little slow on the uptake. Lori, do you want us to put a number in on the motion that we approve the special ed in early in the amount of X, or are you okay with just us approving the budget as presented?
I'm okay with approving the budget as presented.
Okay. And Al and Joe, that was your motion and your second.
Correct.
Peter, are you good with that? Do you have that?
I got it.
So Al, you get first shot at commenting.
Well, I would just concur with what Keegan said before, that this is just an amazing effort that we've seen over the last few years. And actually, especially with all of the social emotional turmoil that we're surrounded by now, that you're able to turn it in the other direction. And it's astounding. And I'm sure there are not many other districts that can brag about doing the same. So kudos.
Joe, you get second shot.
It left me nothing. All I can do is agree. Absolutely fabulous job. Thank you.
So Stephanie, we didn't get to pat you on the back earlier, but go ahead. We'll pat you on the back too.
It's got to be a virtual one because of COVID, right? 6 foot distance at least.
If there's, Bill, anybody else want to comment, or are you guys ready to vote?
I actually have a little silly question, sorry, again, related to ADM, but I know that we all set this up with the special ed committee, but the ADM being used here, is that the same as the ADM that Bill's submitting, or is that based on?
I'll take that. That is the ADM inclusive of all tuition students.
Correct. No, I know that high school's in there, but it looks like the same numbers last year. But if we've gone down in one, I don't know. I'm just wondering. I don't have a column for the last year's ADM. So.
It is a very exhaustive thing to get ADM. I feel very comfortable with these numbers. I work with your admin assistant. I work with your principal. I work with the Power School. I work with the individual pre-Ks. We have 27 pre-Ks that kids go to school in. Trust me, Lori is quite the taskmaster in making sure that I find every single student.
I drive him really crazy.
It's a fun first 3 weeks of October for me.
But it's important too.
Absolutely, Lori.
You can't go back. Now, if we were
Thanks, all.
Let us go back. So you guys all set to vote, everybody?
Looks like Mark's got a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to double check that what we're voting on is the special education and the ECSE combined. Okay.
Yeah. Peter, can you read back the motion, please?
Yes.
Move to approve the special education budget as presented.
If you want to go ahead and reference the section 2 cover page, I think it covers what Al's mentioning and what Mark is pointing out, that it is the proposed FY22 special education budget, early childhood special education through age 22. It's on
Al,
this page.
with that as a friendly amendment to your motion.
Yes, thank you.
Joe, are you good with that as a second?
Oh, yes.
Mark, is that good? All set? Okay.
All right, could we have the language again?
Proposed FY22 special education budget, early childhood special education through age 22.
Okay, we're all set to vote, folks. All those of you in favor, please say aye.
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 And if there's anybody opposed, please signify so by saying aye. I believe the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So congratulations, Stephanie, Lori, and Bill. You got budgets all together.
Thank you.
Thank you. We
Thank
really,
you guys very much.
I just, before we move to the next agenda item, I just want to, again, thank the board for all the work you guys have done. I think back to the work we did on the special education subcommittee. That was almost 3 years ago. And that is the kind of work that you guys as a board, you bring on new members, but you do deep thinking, you ask good questions. It's a pleasure to work with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. And just as a comment on that too, folks, one of the people who served as a parent member of the public on the special ed subcommittee is now joined Doug on his board. So it's also a good way to get some new people in. So congratulations, Doug, on a new member. The next thing we have is school district updates. And I see Chris is here, and I don't think we have a spot for Chris. But is it okay if we give Chris a couple minutes? Just, I mean, he's been killing himself on getting everybody's schools so that the ventilation systems work. And I know some schools he's gotten to work better than a new school if you built it. So is that okay with everybody? Chris, do you want to give us a 30-second overview or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, out of COVID, one of the silver linings was this HVAC equipment grant administered through Efficiency Vermont. And really great things are happening for all of our buildings, like years ahead of where it would have been. Alliance Mechanical has been doing an outstanding job in the facilities. We've been touching all of the buildings at this point. Everything has been serviced, and then we're in various phases of the air testing and the controls upgrades. But yeah, at the end of this, every building is going to have some sort of a control system. They're going to have updated ventilation equipment. And like I said, I mean, we're really lucky with the amount of funding we were able to get out of this grant program. 1/23 of the total amount out of 300 and something schools in the state. So we jumped on that early. We had a great partnership with Efficiency Vermont and with Alliance Mechanical, and we're really going to come out ahead of the game here.
Sorry, I muted myself. But is everybody good? Thank you, Chris. And I think Lori and Stephanie, I think we're all set with you guys. I mean, if you want to stay and watch us, you can too. I'm not trying to kick you off, but I think we're all good. We're ready to move on to some other issues, right, Bill?
Yes, and Jen, if you just transfer me back to host, then Jen and Chris can go enjoy their evening as well.
Thank you guys again.
Fun.
Thank you. It was nice to see
Thank
you
you.
all.
Great job.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Al, do you want to do a school update on the West River group?
Sure, absolutely. So we have Jamaica open, and as well as Newbrook. Newbrook just opened on the 26th. We also just at our last meeting had Townsend ask about the room ASHRAE approved. We approved that. I believe it was 40 to 50% of the building. I'm not sure what grade levels, but fantastic there. Also, Leland and Gray continues to do work as well, and pretty much set the expectation that Leland and Gray will not start until after the first semester. Additionally, we took up how we want to handle holidays. Thanksgiving, we are not going to open for the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, and also voted for the winter holiday as well, that we not come back until 2 weeks after that holiday, which I believe is January 11th. Other things going on, we have the communications committee, which Keegan heads up. We are trying to get out as much information as quickly as possible, little sound bites to all of our towns to make sure that they're fully apprised of any potential school openings or anything going on. There is a lot going on, so the quicker we get them the information, the better. They're working on that. I think that probably about covers it. The cover, Bill?
Yeah, it was perfect.
Keegan, Ken, Joe, want to add anything?
I think if there's only one thing I can add, I to shout out to our public. There seems to be a lot of public involvement at our online Zoom meetings. And I think that having, there's been many downsides to the COVID-19 experience, but I think a positive side has been leveraging technology to include more people at the table to either hear the conversation or participate. So I think there's a sunny side to that piece too.
I made a note too that you're the communications person. So when the other districts need communication, we're going to send them to you. Hey, Russ, do you want to talk about Windham? Is he still there?
Yeah, I had to find my microphone to unmute it. We've got 8 kids in school right now. We've got 4 are being homeschooled. I haven't been in touch with Mickey for a couple of weeks, but things seem to be going along okay as long as the wind doesn't blow down the tent in the back behind the school. But they put it back up after the wind blows it down. But we're getting along okay. We have an election coming up on election day to find another school board member. So that's moving forward slowly, but we're all hopeful. We're going to get a little snow on Friday or Saturday. So if you look at the picture that replaces my face, that's the power line in March of last year, late one evening when the sun was setting. So I look forward to getting out on the groomer again.
Just so you know, Russ, I put the plows on the loaders and we chain the loaders up. We're putting plows on 2 trucks tomorrow to chase the snow away.
If you do it, it won't snow.
You got it. Allison Stratton, how are things over there?
Things are pretty good. We have 2 new board members as of our last meeting here in October. So that's cool. We're now a 5-person board. And we're really looking forward to that. Just working with 2 more people. Budget-wise, we're kind of in a funny place. We sort of anticipated, COVID really knocking us out of the park, much like it did to Windham. And I'm saying this sort of quietly because I don't want to jinx us. But at this point, we haven't had the crazy increase in influx of students that we thought we were going to. So we're, okay at the moment. And we're just, starting to move into budgeting season and whatnot, and we have a slightly different model, I guess, than some of you guys do. We have to have huge conversations with lots of local schools to figure out, I guess, sort of the direction that they're going in for the year. But yeah, so that's where we're at.
Who are your 2 new board members, Allison?
Well, Boomer Walker from WW. His wife Melissa is on it, and then a woman, Kelly Delia Laskin. She moved here a couple years ago. She has a son at BBA, so 2 parents.
Oh, cool. Melissa's a graduate of Dover Elementary School.
Yeah. And I know she works at Grace Cottage as well, so she's been here, forever. Her husband as well.
Cool. Doug Core, Marlboro.
Well, Rich, as you alluded to, we have a new board member who was definitely part of that special education committee. And we are moving forward next Thursday with our first budget planning session, where we're going to talk about, what does the school look like in 2021, 2022. And then we'll step in with Lori in the next couple of weeks to start building that budget. But I think that's it, Bill. Am I missing anything?
No, just that you guys are, you've reopened full 4 days a week, and
Right.
it's gone unbelievably smoothly.
Yeah, we're open every day except for Monday. And we are monitoring the report that's on the Vermont Department of Health, which I'm just going to ask everybody to also look at, which talks about school transmission. But, there's a lot of zeros on that page. And I think that, we're all seeing spikes right now, but a lot of those spikes are coming from more extracurricular and travel. I think the schools are doing a great job, and I commend everybody at the WCSU for their help and my own administration at Marlboro.
Yeah, and if you look at the numbers too, we were at like zeros for hospitalization and zeros for hospitalized for investigation, and those numbers have climbed a little bit. We're up at like 4 or 5. I haven't seen today's numbers, but it is, they are starting to creep a little bit. So it's a good thing to look at. And, we did give the superintendent the ability, if he sees a problem or sees a trend, to be able to jump right on that. So but that's good, Doug. Hey,
Can I ask a question of Doug?
Yeah.
How does that Tuesday through Friday model work versus like Dover Wardsboro does, has the Wednesday off? How is that working? is that working well for you guys, having the Monday off?
Well, obviously I'm not in the school. I do have a student, I have 2 kids, and they have work to do at home. It's sort of like a remote day, we treat it as, but the day on the Monday allows for the teachers to prep for their week. There's a lot more preparation that goes on, as you know, but also it's sort of kind of acts as a reminder in general for the school that at any moment we could be in dismissal or remote. So that gives people a chance to prepare for the coming week on a Monday, I think.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Will you do River Valleys for me?
Well, what about Mark? Why can't Mark do it?
Oh, Mark, you want to do River Valleys?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. That bus really hurts. We've been open for 4 days a week, as Allison said, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And from all reports, that's going well. We will be starting budget season, I think, a couple weeks after you guys, because we don't vote until April. And yeah, HVAC work is moving along. And that's all I've got.
Well, I would say that River Valleys, you guys have 31 new elementary students, and you have 11 new secondary students, for a total of 42 new students in the district. So that's a pretty significant growth pattern.
Hopefully we
Are
get
you guys gonna? Oh, sorry. A question. Are you guys gonna do the after Thanksgiving, after Christmas thing as well? Where you take the break or no?
That is on the agenda for Monday, November 2nd, for the River Valleys board to discuss that.
Don't do it.
Yeah, it's a little hard when you get the recommendation from the COVID person, though.
Hey, you're a parent, Miss Young. You should attend the meeting and you should voice your opinion to the board. The board very much appreciates public participation.
Keep them in school. Good gravy, please, for my sanity.
Come to the meeting,
You know,
Allison.
Where Keegan was saying like public involvement, I've had much bigger I always joke about my 3 biggest school board meetings ever as chairman, never had anything to do about education. It was about transportation. It was about winter sports, and it was about a cell tower. And, but we get really good turnout on, some of these Zoom meetings. And I think like Keegan, you're saying is it's a little easier for them to be able to jump on the technology, but it is a son of a gun to try to run a meeting. And how Joe and Al have done it and all the other guys and girls. I mean, it just, when we had those 66 people, we were like scanning and it was tough, but hey, I just wanted to touch one other quick thing on school districts, and this is why I wanted Bill and Mark to do the other thing. I want to congratulate, but he left us. I don't see him. Is Dan and Mark, representing us at the VSBA and the VisBit and the VHI stuff. And again, we have two Windham Central people are the VSBA people for this area, and which is pretty good because we're not the biggest district, but we're the best represented. So thank you, Mark, and Doug, let Dan know we thanked them.
Absolutely.
The next thing we had was a legislative update, and I think we covered the more important things like the student waiting. Usually Emily's here and sometimes Laura joins us, so I usually let them just tell us anything. Bill sent out the review. Bill, is there anything we should
No, I just remind everybody that be aware because November and December are the preparation. So right after the election, you're going to start getting a lot of momentum. VSBA is going to start getting movement. The legislature is going to do all their pre-committees. So I just say be alert and be ready to receive some information. We may need to call another meeting if we know what's going to be happening, like with the waiting study. So just be aware, just be alert. But no, I think you're right, Rich. I think we've covered everything.
And the waiting study, again, is usually, Laura speaks to that and Emily, but, that didn't get any traction this year, but it has been recognized. So I think that's a good thing that at least there's a lot of people that know about it, but some of them who aren't going to be in legislature next time around just because they chose not to. And, I don't think there's a lot of contested positions in our neck of the woods.
No.
I think Laura's got somebody running against her, but I don't think Emily does. And I think Carolyn won her seat back, or did she win? And is it just the two of them in the primary, or was there more? I don't know, but I've always also said we're pretty lucky. We're pretty well represented by legislators. So,
Rich? Sorry.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say one thing about the waiting study. It's going to be very difficult for Laura and the people she's working with to get real traction. So I think if the more communication that we as board members and can get the public to send messages to the chair of the House Education Committee and the Ways and Means Committee to really start putting some pressure on them because especially the chair of the Ways and Means Committee is going to probably be one of the biggest roadblocks to getting anything done through the legislature.
I don't think Janet's running again.
Yeah.
She's not?
So no, I don't think so. So
that would be.
Yeah, there's going to be some shakeup, but again, you never know. And you never know who's going to get appointed to what committee too. There's a lot of backroom deals made, even in a little state of Vermont. That's why there's
sorry to can I just ask Mark a question real quick, Rich? Or a question to you to ask Mark?
No,
what about, COVID hit in March, and we had just gone up there to March 11th to provide testimony. So what happens with that testimony in the Ways and Means? Is for the issue of the waiting study.
It's all done.
It's all gone. You have to start all over again.
It's a whole new biennium or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
So, because new committee members, there'll be new committees made up, people will get promotions, people will get demoted because they didn't follow the party line, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that'll happen. So that's why Mark is saying is, January 1st would be a really good time to jump on this, as a board and as a group. And remember, as a board, we have some pull. As a group, we have more of a pull. And if we can get VSBA to, back us, and we can get the Superintendents Association and the union, the more people that back us, the more pull we have. But again, it affects some other towns. It goes back to the original Act 60, how many winners and how many losers are there? And the winners and losers are based on who's going to save money and who's going to pay more money. And, that's what it's going to boil down to, unfortunately.
And Doug, Laura has a working group, both members of the public and legislators, that she's convening every so often. So if that's something you're interested in, just send her an email and she'll add you to the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
The only other thing I had under new business was, and I think we talked about it last time, but during the meeting, I noticed there was still the chat was able to be done, and still says I can send something to Jen. But just so you all know, there was a recommendation from our attorney, Pietro Lynn, that we should not utilize chat. It doesn't conform to the open meeting law. So just if you were trying to chat or something and you can't use it, that's why you can't chat to other people. Bill, you had policy, warn domestic partner policy for healthcare. You sent that out to everybody. So did everybody get a chance to read that? And is everybody ready to talk about it? And are we putting Allison to sleep?
Do we still have a quorum?
Yes, we do. I just counted just to make sure.
Well, that's what I noticed.
So this comes from the state. This is in preparation for the new healthcare law that's coming in on January 1st. I sent you the packet. It's domestic partner application and policy. It's all one thing put together. My recommendation is you don't change a thing and you adopt it whole hog as is, because it's what's going to happen anyways. So it's more important for us to adopt it, and then I can get it out to all of our employees, and they understand what their rights are, because those rights are going to exist on January 1st anyways, and they're all signing up for their changes right now. So what I would propose, if it's okay with this group, is this group would do the warning, and the executive committee that meets every Wednesday would do the adopting after the appropriate amount of time that has gone on, so that we don't have to reconvene this group simply for that. But it's up to you guys.
So the motion would be to approve to warn the domestic partner policy, to post the domestic partner policy. If somebody would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'm going to let Ken make the motion, and Mark, will you second it, please?
Surely.
Okay, so Ken moved to post to warn the domestic partner policy. Bill, is there a number with that? I don't have it right in front of me.
No, there is no number. It's just called
well,
domestic partner application and policy.
Will it get assigned a number based on the VSBA numbering system?
The VSBA did not produce this. This comes from the Department of Human Resources from the state of Vermont.
Okay.
I did ask, and the VSBA is not going to be jumping into those waters.
No, which is a great call.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Ken, any discussion?
No discussion.
Mark, you all good? Any discussion from anybody? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
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 And any opposed, please signify so by saying nay. Appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Peter, did you get that motion okay, and who made and seconded? I forgot to check.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Okay.
This one's the warn, yes?
Yes, so the warn to post. I'm going to break all your hearts, and you guys are going to probably get pretty mad at me, but we don't have to have another meeting because we approved the 3 budgets that we needed to approve, or the 2 budgets. We approved the principal or the superintendents and the special ed. So we had meetings set for the 4th, 18th, and 2nd of December. Unless, Bill, I'm missing something, because agency fund we won't do, or fee for services.
No, I would recommend your recommendation of canceling those meetings. I would just make sure to be alert that if something comes from VSBA, if Mark hears something from VSBA about the waiting study and we want to convene a meeting, we'll do it on a Wednesday and we'll give you way heads up. But just be prepared. It'll probably happen in between that Thanksgiving and Christmas, December period that we would get together, to prepare for testimony, or if Doug and Mark go to the working group and find out that they need something from the WCSU, it would probably be in that stretch of time.
Okay. Is anybody upset about that? Does anybody want to keep those meetings? Yeah, Keegan does. She likes the Zoom stuff. Okay. We're going to go into, no, I can't go into executive session for that. We're going to go into executive session in a minute for the superintendent's evaluation. But one of the things during the evaluation, I had a discussion with the superintendent about maybe coming up with a better tool to do the evaluation. If those of you that have been around for a while, like Ken and Al and Joe, remember that the evaluation used to be like 100 pages, and there were questions there. The superintendent knows how to turn the furnace off and on, and he makes sure the flag is up in front of the building every day. And it was really a useless thing. There was maybe 20 good questions. So we actually cut it way back, and it's changed. It used to just be that there was a written evaluation. Mrs. Decker would do it with the superintendent, Mr. Lewis, and then it would kind of just get signed off. And we actually tried to do a more professional one, but it was some of the questions aren't great. And the reason we evaluate the superintendent is so he knows what we're expecting and what we think is going well and what we don't think is going well. But he also, we started including several years ago certified staff members in the central office and the administrators in the buildings, because they work with Bill obviously more than, or they work with the superintendent obviously more than we do. So Bill did this year go off the reservation a little bit, and he made a much better tool for him to get input from his administrators and from his central office staff. The problem is it didn't exactly align with the evaluation that we did. And there's still a bunch of stuff that a lot of the board members get confused on. There's questions in there about, the financial stuff. And one person made a comment, well, we don't deal with Bill on financials. Lori does that. Just remember that we supervise one person. And so if we don't like what Lori's doing, we don't go to Lori and say, hey, we're evaluating you and here's what you have done wrong and right. We evaluate Bill and we say, we don't think the financial department's working and we don't think you're doing your job. And then it's up to Bill to correct it. It's not up to us. So I know that Allison was working on some stuff for that too. And I'm not going to go into that tonight, but what I'd like to do is I'd just like to ask that within the next month or two, I will be asking to have a meeting to kind of review what Allison's put together and what Bill's put together, so that we have a really good process that does more for Bill and does more for us. The written comments do really well by us. We get a lot of good points from them. I've always liked the gap thing just because it kind of, gives an indication, where we feel that superintendent's doing a good job and where we feel he could do more. And it's interesting comparing that to what the superintendent thinks. But there may be an easier way to do it or a better way to do it, because the problem is what I may think is a 3 or a 4. Doug may say, oh, he's doing a great job, but, I'm never going to give him a 5 because that's perfect. So I'm going to always give him a 4. So we just wanted to see if we could make a little bit better system that actually gave Bill a little bit. Now, Bill has agreed that over the last few years, they have been helpful to him and given him some guidance. So that's what I want to talk about in open session. The other thing is we don't have this being recorded by the TV people. Don't we usually do Windham Central on TV?
I send them this recording.
Oh, cool. So I would like to entertain a motion to move into executive session to do superintendent's evaluation, to discuss specifics on the evaluation. And then I think, Peter, we can just send you whatever information when we come out and any motions or anything afterwards, and then you don't have to come back in.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And do I get to go too, right?
No, you have to stay.
I thought you were talking about me.
No, we're going to talk with you, I thought.
Oh,
Okay. We just didn't want to talk behind your back.
Yes.
I'll make the motion to go into executive session.
We're not talking about you, Bill. We're talking about the questions we're going to ask you.
Okay.
So Ken made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Keegan. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Was reviewed, and it's in the record books. It's in the personnel files of our superintendent.
Way to go, Bill.
And Allison, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you send, or can Bill, you give her control, or how can she share that?
I'm gonna give you control, Allison.
Okay. And I apologize. I know I'm kind of moving around a little bit here. You know, it's the kids and bedtime and all that stuff. And I know I'm not trying to make anybody seasick.
All right, you could share, Allison.
All right. Let me share, I guess, my screen. I don't know if you guys can even see this. Can you see what I'm doing right now or no?
Not yet.
I just see the first letter of the alphabet.
Oh, well, I don't know. Bill, you had it.
So call it up on your computer, and then in the Zoom, go down to the green button that says share screen.
That's what I did.
But you have to put your camera on.
Yeah. Well, screen recording, it's photos. I don't know. Everything on your screen, including notifications, will be okay. I don't know.
Bill,
you know
do
what
you have it?
Yeah,
mine,
let me grab it.
because you know what the problem is? I'm on my phone.
Oh, no problem. I'll grab it, Allison.
All right, I'm
Sorry about
super
that,
sorry.
guys.
But you gotta make me host now, Allison.
Oh, jeez.
He's not going to give up the power.
For future references, host can grant screen sharing powers without passing host around.
How? How do you do that?
How do I
click on the person's name and say it's in the meeting parameters down under more, I think.
Oh, because I go to their name. Yeah.
But you can say allow participants to share screen.
See, mine doesn't even say where I am the host.
With you on the phone, I don't know. I haven't done a lot of Zoom phoning. Bill, you can take it back.
I
If
can.
you were the host, you can take back host.
Okay. Well, I'll try to share. Oh no, you're right. Okay.
It says you're the one recording. Oh, host. Wait, how do I? No.
Well, that's okay. We just lost somebody, so we're officially not a meeting anymore.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
It's okay. People are tired. So who wants
Well,
to
you know what?
volunteer to help Rich and Allison?
Can I just tell you something?
Go ahead, Allison.
So basically what I did was I took Bill's eval that he gave me and I turned it into like a Google form and I broke it down. The first part of it, you have to identify who you are, whether you're the principal, a school board, which school board you're from, a WCSU employee or other, so it could be used otherwise. And then it breaks it down by those, I think you said it was 6 sections. And the 6 sections are self-contained within themselves. So, where it goes, the first one I think is like information. And then there's like 6 questions under that. And you multiple choice choose. And then at the bottom of that section, it asks for comments and it asks you to reference which number. The only thing I didn't do was assign that numeric. I don't know how I could go back into it and look at it again to assign the numbers, the 1 through 4 system. I didn't do that, but this one will, when you fill out the form and it emails it back to you, it will spit out a nice summary, which is essentially what you were doing anyway, but it's very nice and neat. It's very well organized, I think. It was Bill's thing that I just put in the form, so it was his organization. Yeah, and I really wish that I had a way to show this with you so you could see it.
It's really well done, Allison. I mean, you've organized it so that the board is going to be able to see all of the results. They'll be able to see just the board results. They'll be able to see just central office results. They'll be able to see just the people I supervise, principal results. So you'll be able to slice and dice it as well as collate it all together.
Okay.
You did a nice job.
That sounds
Thanks.
what you're looking for. So, Keegan, Allison, Joe, can I pull you into this too? Because I know you're big into technology, so you can make sure that when I can't figure it out.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we do that be the committee? So there'll be 5 of us on the committee, and Bill, we'll send out an invite in the next couple of weeks to maybe we can do a quick phone meeting or something, but it'll have to be warned because it is a subcommittee of the Windham Central Board.
Got it.
Everybody okay with that? Is anybody dying to go to another meeting?
Getting really good.
Always.
Okay. Well,
Since it's a subcommittee, does it have to be a motion?
no, we can just, the chair, I think, has some leeway to appoint subcommittees and appoint people on the subcommittees. It's one little thing we get.
Well, and you're not a quorum. As long as you're under that quorum number, you're fine.
So but we will warn things and do minutes so people know what's going on. So thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it. It was a good meeting. We got a lot done. Mark, you left me for a minute there. We were under quorum, but.
Sorry, battery died on the computer.
Okay. So, hey, thank you, everybody. If I don't see you, have a great Halloween. If I don't talk to you too, have a good Thanksgiving. Everybody be safe, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, everybody.
And
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Please.
Night, everyone.
hey, who seconded that motion?
I did.
Al did. Either
Al
way,
did.
you can get it out.
Al. Okay, thank you, everybody.